Welcome to the Financial Update with First Community Bank, live every fourth Thursday of the month on WLIJ and podcasted on Facebook. Join guests from First Community Bank and our host as they inform, educate, and encourage you on all things finances. First Community Bank is a member FDIC, equal housing lender. Now, here's your host. Hi there, folks. This is Chase Clanton with Hopkins Farms Broadcasting for the Financial Update. And today I'm joined by a guest from First Community Bank on staff, Miss Nicole Simmons. They're anti-money laundering and compliance officer. Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Chase.
Yes, ma'am. Good to do it again. I think we did this maybe sometime last year, I think.
Yeah, we talked a little bit more broadly about what my team does, and talked about we touched on some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, I think, when I was here last time.
Okay. Yeah, so we're talking about scams today. Money scams, romance scams, credit card fraud, like mail theft, all kinds of different things. But this is always changing. Mm-hmm. So it'll be exciting to get an update on that so we can keep ourselves protected.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. So scams obviously are a part of our daily life. What have you been seeing lately? What's the day-to-day kind of common scam right now?
I think the most prevalent ones we see at the moment are going to be around check scams, check fraud, and then the romance scams. So, and they're both kind of have different flavors to them.
Right.
So if we talk about check fraud, check scams, that really starts with the bad guy stealing the check, theoretically.
Right.
Your businesses or yourself, you're writing your checks for paying your bills, or maybe you got a paycheck that got mailed, or even your tax refund check was coming through the mail.
Right.
And someone takes it out of the mailbox. And at that point, there's this whole process that's in play where the bad guys will wash the checks.
Tell us a little bit more about that process, because that kind of blew my mind there.
Yeah, so I'm not going to give all the how-tos because, we
don't want people doing it.
No, I think you can pretty much Google anything these days.
Yeah.
But essentially there's like a chemical that you can use that's an everyday household chemical that will allow you to lift the ink off of different parts of the check. So say you want to change the name. Mm-hmm. Say you want to change the amount. They're never going to want to change a signature. That's
right.
Really that place.
Yeah.
But they're going to change the amount. They're going to change the signature or the payee, and they're going to put in generally a higher amount. A lot of times we do see them stay not too high, like under $3,000, because that might trigger additional review or scrutiny at the bank once you start to hit that level.
Yeah, and that's the thing we're going to see is that these scams, the smart ones anyway, are trying to do something low enough, at least in an amount that they can still fly under the radar.
Right, because they make up for it in volume.
Yeah.
And then they recruit people to go around and cash the checks or deposit them into their established accounts. And some of the bad guys are even so advanced that they create fake accounts. Like if you have a bank that has online account opening, First Community does not. But for some of the larger banks that allow online account opening, they'll put in fake information, or they call it like synthetic identity. It's a whole different topic.
Okay,
they
it's fake information.
Stuff. Yeah, they take it from different sources. But they will put it in the checks into these accounts, and the checks, as soon as the bank will allow the person whose account it is to take funds, the bad guy will say, hey, if you put this check in, I'll give you, you keep 10%, I'll take the rest. theoretically, like that's part of it. It can also, that scam can meld into lots of other scams. But the bad guys are generally not the ones that are putting it in their own accounts. They're not going to be the fall guy on this. They don't want it to come back to them, so they layer it. But yeah, they're putting different ink on the check. Now, if you're a business and say you wrote a check to your vendors, to pay off storage or something like that.
Okay.
Most businesses have accounting processes where they'll, send out their invoices. They'll wait for payment, and then after 30 days or whatever the terms are, they'll rebalance the books, and they'll send another notice out for not payment. So if you're a business who paid somebody, you're assuming they got the check, and it's not maybe until 30 days later that you'll get a notice from them saying you still have an outstanding balance.
Right.
And you're like, well, the check I wrote was cashed, and then
it cleared the bank. What do you mean? And then there's probably frustration mixed in there until we finally discover that the money went somewhere else.
Yeah, so protecting your checks, protecting how you write your checks. There's some anecdotal suggestion. I haven't tried it myself, but using gel pen.
I think this is a gel pen.
So there's all different, types. So a ballpoint pen is super easy to get the ink off the pen or the paper, but the gel pens seem to have, it's a little harder. So
I think they're wetter, if you will, like they soak into the paper more.
Yeah. So that's what we've been told by some fraud experts, that gel pens are a little harder to get the ink off. But I mean, when you're a business, you're printing the checks off your printer. So that's that's why business checks are usually targeted more frequently than personal checks.
I see. So how do we usually figure out that this fraud has taken place and it's not actually a late payment? What's the red flag that pops up?
So often, the bank will have some transaction monitoring tools. So we'll know if there's visual recognition on the check. So there's some technology around that to look like things aren't right. So that's part of the check fraud. If the business knows themselves, because you can, if you have online banking, you can go in and you can see what's clear in your account every day.
Right.
And you can click, if you wrote check 123 for $5,000, but check 123 got cleared for $8,000. Now there's something that we want to look at, right? So the customer really has to make sure that they're diligent about what's happening in their account. You have to stay informed.
Yeah, I was going to say, excuse me, what you're telling me, I'm thinking it's going to be really important to keep good records. Know what check 123 was. Have that written down, whether it's in an old school checkbook or there's some type of electronic record, digital record of it somewhere.
Yeah.
You want to have those good records so that you can verify.
Right.
And you can keep your awareness. And awareness is going to be a major theme in protecting yourself.
Right. Yeah. So we're hopeful that the customers are going to do that. We also can pick up if checks are put through out of sequence. So, yeah.
Okay,
so
tell me more about
that. If the bad guy changes a check number because they don't want it to pick up by, to say maybe it was 123 when it started, but it's 1234 when it comes to the bank.
Okay.
We're going to be like, they're not on that number, and it alerts us to something being out of sequence.
Yeah, maybe they hadn't even ordered that check number yet.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So there's some monitoring on the bank's end, but really, the customer is the best line of defense because what checks you've written, or you should know.
You should know your finances.
Yeah. So, that's the best way to protect it. There's always, like I said, there's different flavors to everything. We actually had a combination romance scam and check fraud happen.
Okay.
Not too long ago, where a man came into one of the branches, and he had a checkbook, a whole book of checks, and he wrote a check for $10,000 off the check, or off the account.
Okay.
And he wanted to cash it.
Right.
And it was drawn on our bank, and it had a routing number, account number, and all that. But when the teller was keying in the system, the name on the top of the check did not match the name in our records. It was a business account, and this was an individual's name.
Oh.
Well, they had stolen the information of the check from check fraud, but then they went out to one of those check ordering companies and just ordered their own name on the check using the account number and routing number for a business account.
Really?
Yes. And so then when...
Wow.
And this man had never even come to our bank to open an account.
Yeah, but yet he got one of your numbers. Yeah.
So he didn't know. He was like unwitting, what we call an unwitting money mule, right?
Okay.
He had gotten sucked in on a romance scam.
Yeah.
And the woman that he had been talking to online that was apparently going to be flying in that afternoon to meet him had sent him the checks and said that she funded the account so that he could go and get cash on hand because they were going to go get married that weekend.
Here's
so like, holy cow, right?
Yeah, it's bizarre. And one way that you should start having your red flag sensors go up is the more weird and complex it gets.
Exactly.
The more dominoes that are involved, the more likely it is that this is a scam.
Right.
And the problem with the romance scam is your emotions get invested and you want to believe it.
Oh my gosh.
Because you have an unmet need. And we could talk therapy session about that all day. But please be objective when it comes to romance scams. Please.
Yes. So the check fraud part can come into all of that, right?
Right.
So that's a big one. And then, the romance scams are the other big one that we see way more often than I'd like.
Really?
Yes.
Even in this area?
Yes.
Really? I'm surprised.
So I've been at the bank about 3.5 years.
Okay.
And my first week at the bank, we had a romance scam.
Really?
And I say we probably have, that I know of, at least a dozen or more customers a year. And the customer loss ranges from, I would say, maybe $500 to $200,000.
Say that again?
$500 to $200,000.
I mean, and depending on your situation, both of those amounts can be a lot of money.
Exactly. The woman who lost the $500, she did not have that money to lose. She
didn't need to lose that.
And now we've got therapy going on in the bank office because it's a loss.
That's a good point.
They're grieving the relationship loss. They're now worried about the financial impact of it.
Sure.
And a lot of times people just feel stupid. And it's a terrible thing to say, but that's what they say to me.
No, that's a report from the trenches, if you will. Yeah. They feel stupid, and I would too.
Yeah.
But it happens, and it's a terrible thing, but we all fall victims sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and those start so innocuously. I myself got a couple of texts just this week that I know were the very beginnings of what could go into a romance scam or a relationship scam.
Wow.
Yeah. And did you say you had a couple of texts that you thought were...
Mine, and we're talking to our board op Dawson as well. Mine, I think I got 2 yesterday for people wanting to hire me. Okay. And it's obviously it's a scam.
Yeah.
Because the text is like, as long as the Declaration of Independence, and it's got all these weird specific things. It pays an absurd amount of money, like per day. So they're really fishing.
Yes.
They're fishing.
Exactly. They cast a really wide net. So I had one this week that said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at church.
That's a new one on me.
And then there was another one that just said, hey, H-E-Y. That's it.
I've gotten that one before.
And all it takes is somebody to respond. And it could be, you could say, sorry, I don't remember you, or hey, back, or, and then...
Who is this?
Yeah. And then they start. And I kind of equate it back to, you think like, who's going to give personal information, right? I remember growing up, my grandma would answer the phone, and it could be a wrong number. And she might be on the phone for 5 minutes. And I'd be like, Grandma, who are you talking to? Because, you hear one side of it, right?
Yeah.
And she'll be like, oh, well, they had the wrong number, but I think I might know who they were trying to reach. I'm trying to help them figure it out.
Different times.
Right? And in that situation, like... they might have just really hit one of the wrong numbers, and it was a small town, and she might have been like, oh, yeah, that's Margaret down the street, kind of thing. Or, oh, we get calls for so-and-so all the time. What the number you really want is this.
Yeah, we get confused with Domino's all the time, Here's the number.
Yeah.
Right.
So back in that day, she would entertain that. Well, we still have that great generation where if you're going to get a phone call or you're going to get a text message, especially if technology isn't something you grew up on and it's kind of new to you, like maybe you recently had taught grandma or grandpa how to use the phone, how to get the text messages, they're going to respond. But then also think, how many of us get our kids cell phones at 11, 12, 13. If a 12-year-old got a text message that said, hey, and it was a number they didn't know, how likely are they going to respond back?
Especially over the summer when they're bored.
Exactly. Exactly. And the person on the other end, it's their job to hook that somebody in.
Right.
And the ultimate play is going to be to have some kind of financial ask. So that's where it's like relationship scam versus romance scams. They can take it any which way. It's like, it's choose your own adventure, choose your own scam path.
Yeah, and there is a human, although they're being very shadowy about it, they're lying. There is a human with intelligence on the other end of this phone that will try to deceive you.
Right. Most of the time, the human on the other side is somebody who has a script. And it is their job that, it's if the respondent says this, kind of gives you a path.
Go with this path,
Yeah, if you can determine age, go this path. Gender, go this path.
Sure.
Where you're going to get the 60-year-old guy that responds is probably going to get the response to think he's talking to a 20-year-old female.
Yeah.
And if it seems like the 60-year-old man is a veteran of some sort, then perhaps the 20-year-old female is currently serving. Anything
to strengthen that bond.
Yeah.
Folks, we're talking to Nicole Simmons about all kinds of different scams, romance scams, and we're going to talk a little bit about more of text scams and the role the bank plays in protecting us against that when we come back to the financial update with First Community Bank.
In our community, we believe in supporting one another. And at First Community Bank, we take that seriously.
Really good.
For generations, we've been proud to serve our neighbors with personal service that's as genuine as a handshake. Whether you're opening an account for your new business, saving for your child's education, or just need a safe place for your money, we're here with a commitment to the people of our hometown. First Community Bank, proud to be your hometown bank. Visit us today and see how we can help you. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to the Financial Update with First Community Bank. Now, back to the show. All right, we're back with the First Community Bank, the Financial Update with First Community Bank. My name is Chase, your host, and again, talking to Nicole Simmons, their anti-money laundering and compliance officer, and Wow, what an educational show thus far. We got plenty of time to go. Just talking about different scams that are affecting the local community and all around the world, honestly.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we left off talking a lot about relationship and romance scams and getting into different texts and stuff we get, although these scams come in a variety of different ways, including mail theft and people using chemicals on our checks, which is just, that blows my mind. Mm-hmm. But what are like some technological ways that maybe the bank can stand against these scams?
So we have a lot of monitoring that we look for unusual activity. So when you come into the bank and you open an account, we're going to ask you some questions so that we can understand what kind of activity you expect to do. If you're someone who is going to just be getting payroll and paying your bills and you tell us, this is kind of the range that we expect to do, then if I start to see big transactions happening, or if I start to see Cash App in Grandma's account.
Yeah, and she doesn't have Cash App.
I mean, maybe she does, but, depending on how much happens, right? Or if I start to see money going out to Crypto.com, or, Bet365, while legal in Tennessee, because I had to look that up recently.
Okay, it is legal.
If it doesn't match to what we expect from you, we're going to reach out and ask you some questions, and just to protect you. And, at the teller window, too, a lot of times when you're doing a transaction that doesn't make sense or seems out of character, because the tellers, we see their smiling faces every time you come in, and, they know our customer base. They know this community. They're part of the community. When they see something that doesn't look right, they're going to reach out to me. And they may ask you some questions, too, to help, me have a starting point, or my team. We have a few other people in the compliance group that will reach out and call and ask, did you write this check? And most of the time, the customers are happy that we asked, because they don't want, to have this fraud or thing happen in their accounts. A couple times they feel like we're being a little invasive, but really, we're only just trying to look out for the community and our customer base.
Yeah, I guess it would be natural to feel a little defensive if, somebody's asking you questions about, a transaction or something, and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's where I think knowledge and informing them will kind of help dilute that and calm the water, so to speak.
Yes.
So, okay, so you do lots of different things to monitor. How could you talk to a friend if you think they're a victim of any scam, but especially like a suspected romance scam?
That has been a challenge, because, like I said, we're having those therapy sessions in the bank where I have to break the news to them that they have been a victim of a scam.
Yeah.
But we also get calls that say, I think that my mom might have fallen for this, or my dad, might be in the midst of this kind of a scam. And the family members, like, I can't believe they fell for this. And one of our own team members, their parent had fallen for a scam.
Right.
And my coworker gave me a call and said, what do I do? And it was like 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Like, what do I do?
Oh, no.
And my coworker's all angry, about what happened with their parent.
Yeah,
and
lots of frustration.
I was like, give it some grace,
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you in the future if there's problems if you don't have some empathy and understanding and patience. And at this point, there's no reason to cause point blame. We're in problem-solving mode. And how do we protect and guard against it in the future?
Yeah, and control any damage that's been done.
Right. So, you're going to want to reach out to your bank. You're going to maybe want to reach out to law enforcement. The bank deals with local, state, and federal law enforcement on a lot of different things. But really just, give some grace and know that this happens to, I would say, I think the rates that we've seen is about about 25% of the adult population has fallen for some kind of scam.
25% of the adult population has fallen for some type of scam.
Yeah, and it could be you clicked the link,
Sure.
And you didn't lose any money. But it could be you clicked the link and then you went down the whole path that now, you're crying in the office because you've lost your life savings.
Yeah.
So,
oh, man.
But everybody's a target. I mean, just everyone in this building now has had some kind of targeted outreach to us, and we have not, been fallen victim, but
fortunately
could have.
Yeah, and I told a story where I can't remember exactly what this was. I think it was some type of confirmation scam. Now, those get me because, if you're making a new account, making a new address, email address, making a new eBay account, whatever it is, you're going to be asked to confirm your email address. Mm-hmm. And I think I got something like that around one of those times, maybe. And so I clicked the link. And I pride myself on being pretty good at catching these scams early. There's signs you can look for. Maybe we can talk about that before we close. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, I'm filling out a Google form, and I'm starting to get suspicious because they're so needy.
Right?
They want so much information. I'm like, okay, email, I can give out my email. My phone number, okay. Okay. Why do you need my address? Why do you need whatever it was? It just kept getting deeper and deeper and more invasive.
Exactly.
And I was like, I don't think this is right. And so my next step, which is a good idea for the listening public and those watching online later, is Google what's going on.
Yes.
Google the phone number, the email address, the name of the person that they're pretending to be, whatever it is. Google the source and the subject and see what comes back. Mm-hmm. You might find a Reddit page where they're just reading their mail about what happened to them.
Right.
Educate yourself.
Exactly. And I think that's a big thing. A lot of times the phone numbers that you're getting texts from, if you look at the phone number, it'll say like +63 or +40.
Yeah.
And then a phone number. That is not how U.S. phone numbers are.
They're +1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
19931. So,
right.
So those are usually from other countries. So that's a big red flag.
It is.
If you hover over an email address, so whereas you maybe were signing up for something at a bank and that's why you thought you're filling that form out, if you hovered over that email address, was it the email address that you knew associated for that entity? A lot of times it might be like, it could have said, First Community 754 at,
Or First Community Pank with a P.
Right, or community is spelled wrong.
Yeah, or spelled with N's. It's whatever.
Yeah, so that's another one. Hover over the email address that something came from. Mm-hmm. If you don't know the phone number, if you didn't ask, if you didn't sign up for something, go back to the source themselves. Call your bank on the number you know it to be. Go back to the source of the information and say, did you send this to me?
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing. And I always like to say, if you didn't enter a lottery, you didn't win anything. And gift cards are for gifts. Never send them to someone over your text message or anything. Don't scratch the back. We've had so many customers driving all around town buying gift cards. And if you, please, hear me now, if you work for one of the businesses in this community that sells gift cards and you see someone buying a whole bunch of them, stop and ask them a question. Because I know, I've been to some of the businesses where you'll get a little pop-up and say, if you're buying these for someone who instructed you, blah, blah, blah. How many times do people just click okay,
You're just clicking okay, because let's be honest, some of those interactions are awkward and we're just trying to click okay.
Exactly.
Okay? It's facts.
Yeah, so if you work at one of these places that sell those, please ask a question. And if you work at one of the places that have a Bitcoin machine and you see someone feeding in $100 bills like they're playing the slots in Vegas, please interact. Don't ask them if they need your help to continue. Ask them, are they sure they want to do this? Because once those gift card numbers are read, once the money's in the Bitcoin machine, the bank can't help you get anything back.
Say that one more time.
Once you've given the gift card numbers or money goes in those Bitcoin machines, the bank cannot help you. You can't get anything back. If there's check fraud involved, we have recourse. If there's wire fraud, if there's debit card fraud, there are recourse.
Especially
we can
credit card.
Help.
Yeah.
Credit card companies can help.
Yeah.
But anytime you have left us with cash and then you go and buy other things and you send it off, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah. It's a tangible good.
Yeah.
It's a gift card, but it's a tangible good. And if you mail that, for example, it's gone. I'm sorry.
Well, most of the time, the bad guys, they're not even going to tell you put those in the mail. They're going to ask you for the numbers.
That's right.
Because that's all they need is you to scratch off the back, give them the numbers, give them the PIN. Especially if it's, Amazon or Apple. Apple gift cards are a big one.
Oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah. So as soon as you send that. So gift cards are for gifts, and your grandkids prefer cash anyway.
That's right. Yeah, just do that and send us your cash. I'm just kidding.
No.
But, and by the way, if you do get, one of these, I think the keys we've had today are to be informed, to be a little skeptical, research the source, look at what the source is.
Yes.
Take a moment, see if that email address or that phone number looks legit. I don't care if it looks like the Geek Squad sent you an email because their logo is on it.
Uh-huh.
Look at that logo, okay? Does it look like it was stretched 3 times in Microsoft Word? Right?
Yes, and anybody can snip a logo off of any website.
I can do it right now on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also Google image search. That's a good one. Yeah. So when you get a picture of somebody, one of the cases I had, somebody got a picture of a woman, and I put it into Google search, and it came back with 25 different Facebook pages with 25 different names.
I've had the same thing happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's called, I think that's called
image.
Yeah, like search. Reverse image search, and you can go to Google. You can find that very easily. Just upload the picture that you're skeptical of. So this would be really helpful for a romance scam.
Definitely,
to protect yourself before it goes any further. Because if you ask them, they're going to do whatever they can to defend themselves and the validity of what they're doing. So play the FBI a little bit. Be a PI. Yeah. Research them. Find out.
And I, my job at the bank is compliance and looking at different, making sure the bank is doing all the things we're supposed to do to protect our customers and ourselves. But I will take time out of my day any day if there is someone, and it doesn't have to be a bank customer, if there's someone in the community and you are feeling like maybe you're in the midst of a scam or something's coming up and you need somebody else's eyes on it, and you don't want to ask your family, you don't call us, come into the bank. Our universal bankers are very well trained. My team is very well trained. Our tellers are very well trained. We can all help, and we're active in the community as a whole, and you don't have to just be our customer. Now, we'd love to have you as your customer because we do a lot to help protect you.
I can see that.
But, other banks do that too. We just want to make sure that I'd much rather have you ask the question before you come in crying that you've lost your life savings.
Oh, that goes along with the slogan, First Community Bank, friends and neighbors first, right?
Yes.
So, okay, well, as we close here, different ways you can protect your finances after a scam. It's not the credit cards, but the gift card thing. That's unfortunate because when that's gone, that's gone. Mm-hmm. But it looks like you can do several different things with bank accounts and credit bureaus. Let's hear a little bit about that before we close.
Sure. So the credit bureaus, there's 3 major credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Yeah. So if you've had some kind of compromise, your data's been compromised, your accounts are compromised, you just have to call one of them and tell them you had a compromise and you want a credit hold or a credit freeze on your credit. Then they have to tell the other 2. So you just have to call one of them. You can Google for the phone numbers. It's super easy. And that means that if someone got a hold of all of your information, Chase, and then they go over to Best Buy and they're at the cash register and they're asking, hey, do you want to open a credit card? You'll get 10% off on this. And the bad guy's there, and they're like, sure, my name is Chase Clanton, and trying to use it. But if you've put a fraud alert on, they're not going to be able to get that credit card.
Because it's paused.
It's got a red flag on there, and they won't be able to open any new credit. So that's a big one.
It's a good one.
And then if you haven't, you should be reviewing your own credit report on a pretty periodic basis. It used to be you would only be able to get one from each credit bureau once a year.
Oh, no, you can do that basically on demand, right?
Well, you can do it weekly. They started that back in the 2020 times. That they're allowing an annual or a weekly review of your credit. And you can't get your credit score for free, but you can get your credit report for free. And it's only one site. It is annualcreditreport.com.
Annualcreditreport.com.
That's the only one that actually offers you free credit reports. It's a federal mandate and a federal site. So they're the one, they make sure that that's available to you. And then keep up with, the bank puts out a lot of stuff about scams and frauds and such on our Facebook and Instagram accounts. But AARP, their website and their magazine has a lot of great information. You don't have to even have an AARP membership to go to their website. And then the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. Right. Their website also has a lot of great information to educate yourself on frauds and scams.
So, folks, plenty of good resources for you if you want to educate yourself further. And also, I'm sure the people, especially if you're a customer or curious about becoming a customer, but I'm sure the folks at First Community Bank would be glad to talk to you. You can call them at 931-684-5800. That's 931-684-5800. That's 5800. And they want to do everything they can to help you. Definitely. So just reach out to them. But plenty of resources to educate yourself and get more information if you're afraid that you might have fallen victim to one of these scams. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Nicole, is there anything else you want to mention before we go off the air?
I think just the idea of maybe adding a name to your account, a trusted person, so that if you do get into a situation and we're not able to reach you, that you have told us somebody that you think is okay for us to call.
Sure.
We like to do that, especially with our seniors, but anybody really, because sometimes when you're in the midst of one of these, the bad guys have you tied up on your phone. And we can't reach you. So
that's a good point.
So, if you give us a trusted contact on your account, we'll only reach out in that event. They don't have any access to your account. They can't touch your money. They can't see your statements. But it's just someone we could call and say, hey, I think you need to check on your loved one because there's something going on and we can't reach them.
Good information, Nicole. Stay aware, stay informed, and stay protected from scams, and know that the folks at First Community Bank are doing everything they can to protect you from that. Nicole, thanks for talking to me today.
Thanks for having me, Chase.
Absolutely. My name's Chase Clanton, your host. We've been talking to Nicole Simmons about various scams, financial scams and whatnot. They're anti-money laundering compliance officer. This is Chase Clanton with the Financial Update. We will see you next time.
98.7 and AM 1580 WLIJ, streaming on WLIJradio.com.